Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. So we should have had our introduction by now. So I'm just going to get right into it. So this is chapter 1, biology. Again, if you have any questions about what I'm talking about and you don't really understand what the hell I'm talking about, then by all means, please send me an email, and then I will get back to you and we can set up a meeting to discuss it. Because I really want everybody to watch the recording, but I also want you guys to like have contact with me and ask questions. And I will. This is gonna be Tuesday. On Thursday, I'll go over the content of this chapter. Okay, in class, and then we'll work things out. Okay. All right. So let's get started. Okay. So chapter 1. Okay. So unit 1, chapter 1, basically talks about basic science, what science is, what chemistry is, what biology is, what all these definitions are. Okay, and we'll get more into details. Okay, so this slide. Okay. Biology, by definition, bio, life, logos, study of. So biology is the scientific study of life. Okay. So one of the rules of what life is, there's two fundamental things that requires for life, and one is that all organisms are made out of cells. Okay. So this is also known as cell theory. The cells are the basic unit of life. Every organism has one or more cells. So bacteria, or in this picture, the amoeba, has one cell, and therefore they're unicellular organisms. More complex organisms are multicellular. They have more than one cell. You have trillions of cells. Some simple like worms themselves have about 1,000 cells. So we can have anywhere from 1 to several trillion cells. Okay. Okay. Another thing that always has to be true is that all organisms have some form of DNA. Okay. DNA is the molecule in our cells that carry genetic information. It is what's passed on to the next generation. So if you have a child, you are not passing on your proteins. You're not passing on like your fat cells and other stuff. What you're really passing on to your child is half your DNA. Okay. So also, and we'll get more into that in the later chapters. We explain exactly what happens during reproduction, etc. Okay. Okay. So all cells use the DNA to produce proteins, which carry out the work cells do. Okay. My background is actually in genetics, so I understand this quite well. Your body, your DNA basically has about 21,000 genes. Each gene makes proteins. So that's what your DNA actually is. Okay. All right. Life is defined by its characteristics. So how do we tell something's alive? Okay. Living. So not just previously alive, but currently alive. Okay. One is organization. Okay. Energy, internal constancy, reproduction, growth, and development, and last but not least, evolution. Okay. So let's talk about each one. Okay. Okay. So the characteristics of life. Okay. So if you ever taken chemistry, you know that everything is made out of atoms, and atoms combine together to form molecules. Okay. Molecules combine to form things called organelles. Okay. Organelles are things like a mitochondria, a nucleus, and we'll talk more about what every organelle does in chapter either 2 or 3. I forgot how this book works. Okay, but it's either chapter 2 or 3. Okay. A cell. Okay. Organelles combine together to form cells. Okay. And cells combine together to form tissues. Like you have muscles, you have bones. Okay, those are tissues. So and each tissue is made out of different types of cells. Okay, together the tissues, okay, combine together to form organs. For example, your brain. Okay, your brain as an organ, as an organ, it has nervous tissue, the neurons, it has blood, which is connective tissue, and stuff like that. So, like, and it has epithelium, which is the outer layer, which we'll talk about later. But each organ is made out of tissues. Okay, you have many, many organs. Okay, and they're arranged together into something called an organ system. Okay, for example, your digestive tract. There's your mouth, there's your tongue, there's your teeth. Each of those are organs, and then like your esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, those are all organs, and they all work together for digestion. So organ system. Okay, an organ system combines together to form an organism. So where I have a digestive system, I have a respiratory system, I have a circulatory system, all of these systems do a certain thing. Like my respiratory system helps me breathe, my digestive system helps me digest food, my nervous system helps me think and process information. All of that combined to make me me. Okay, and that the combination makes me a organism. Okay, pause for a second. Okay, where were we? Okay, organisms. Okay, a organism doesn't survive by itself. Like I can't survive by myself. I have my wife, children, friends, etc., coworkers. Okay, random people who work at Subway and McDonald's who serve me food, people who serve them food, people who do other stuff. Okay, like we live in populations. Okay, so a population, okay, is a group of the same species of organism living in the same place and same time. Okay, it is really hard to define what an exact population of humans are because we move around so much. But if I took the city of Los Angeles and I kind of separated it from the rest of the world where no one can get in or out of Los Angeles, then Los Angeles would be a population. New York would be a population. Okay. But even populations don't really exist by themselves. Okay. A population, or sorry, populations form a community. Okay. So a community is like I have dogs, cats, rats. Okay. So other organisms interact in the same environment as us. Okay. It might not be a good interaction like fleas and rats and other animals, but they interact with us and they change our behavior and act upon us somehow. Okay. Trees, right? Having trees available, etc., grass, like ants, insects. All these things are living together in a community. Okay. In addition, we have ecosystem. A community is only made out of living things. Okay. An ecosystem includes all the non-living things, the temperature, the amount of rainfall, the amount of wind, the amount of dirt, the amount of rocks, the amount of availability of water. All of that factors into ecosystem. Okay. Okay. An ecosystem combined together. Okay, ecosystems combine together to form a biosphere. Okay, the biosphere is kind of like the whole entire planet. Okay, all right, so let's move forward. all these. All right. Organization leads to emergent properties. Emergent properties arise at each level of the biological organization. Okay, and when these components interact, the sum is usually greater than the whole of the part. So it's like two. The concept of emergent properties is like 2 plus 2 is equal to 5. In reality, humans themselves, like it's 2 plus 2 is equal to like 1,000. Like, you can study neurons and stuff all you want, and it's really important in the study of human behavior to study individual neurons. Okay, understand how neurons function. But no matter how much you study individual neurons, you will have no idea how the brain works until you put it together. Okay, so emergent properties arise at each level of biological organization. Okay. Go over this. The answer is welding metal together to make an official office building. You can study the properties of metal all you want. You won't be able to come to understand how office building works unless you study office buildings. Okay. All right. All organisms obtain energy. Okay. Energy is needed to do all these things. Okay. So all organisms obtain energy. The first level of energy obtaining is producers. Producers get energy directly from not living sources. So 99% of all that is sunlight. Okay, so there's sunlight. I'm sure you guys know this. Sunlight hits plants. It allows plants to grow. Okay, and then from there, so the producers include plants, some protists, and many prokaryotes. Most of our energy is actually ultimately produced by prokaryotes and not plants like we think it is. Okay, so these are producers. Producers are eaten by consumers. So consumers eat the plants or they eat other consumers that eat plants. Like, for example, the hamburger that I had this morning, the beef, came from a cow. That cow ate grass or corn. And so I am consuming a consumer which consumed a producer. Okay. And then last but not least, okay, decomposers. Decomposers are really important in the environment because they break down the remains of different things and they allow us to reuse a lot of the components. Okay, so decomposers, fungus, some animals, not a lot, mostly fungus and mostly bacteria. Those are two big groups of decomposers. Okay. Okay. Internal constancy. All organisms must maintain some sort of internal constancy, and that concept is called homeostasis. Okay, homeostasis is the process by which a cell or organism maintains internal constancy. Okay. A great example of this is temperature. Okay. I'm sure you guys are aware your body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius or 98.7 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. And our body maintains that. It tries very hard to maintain that temperature. And when it doesn't, things go bad very quickly. Okay. So humans have an internal thermostat. So that's in our brain. Our brain tries to keep our body at this temperature. And every time, and then we have sensors in our body to detect the temperature around us and make sure we can adjust. So, for example, if you're cold, okay, you start to shiver. Okay, so shivering from your muscles warms up your body and brings your body back to that core temperature. Okay, your extremities might feel cold when you shiver, but your heart and your brain, they stay at a core temperature of 98.7. And it does that. It tries very, very hard to do that. Okay, and the same thing when it's too hot. When it's too hot, then you sweat, cool down. Your skin gets all red because you're trying to push off some of the heat. Okay, with your blood. So organisms try to maintain internal constancy, and we'll learn much more about how we do that in following chapters. Okay, like I said, this is chapter 1. So I know I'm saying, I mentioned something, I say we'll follow up on it, and we will. That's what the whole book's all about. Okay, so okay. So not only do we maintain body temperature, we have to maintain the correct levels of salt in our blood, the optimal levels of nutrients, calcium. There's a billion other things other than what they mentioned, and the human body is actually really complicated. Okay. Okay. So, organisms have to be able to reproduce. So if you imagine a case where there's organisms and they're not able to reproduce, well, after they die, that means there's no more of them. Okay, so there's 2 types of reproduction: asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is only one where one parent is involved, and the offspring are basically genetically identical to the parent. Okay, there's a lot of organisms that can do both sexual and asexual. Okay, like the strawberry plant right here. This is asexual development. These plants, these little plantlets, okay, are actually identical to the parent. And if you cut them, then they can grow into their own plant. Asexual reproduction is a very successful strategy in non-changing environments. So if the environment is the same, then asexual reproduction will win out because it's faster and it's easier. It wastes less energy. However, environments change, and when the environment changes, sexual reproduction wins. Sexual reproduction is usually when 2 parents are involved, and the offspring are genetically different in each parent. They're a combination of both parents. Okay, sexual reproduction is a very successful strategy in a changing environment because every offspring is unlike every other offspring and unlike the parent. Okay, like you are the product of sexual reproduction. You are neither your mother or your father. You are some combination of both of them. Okay, and you have siblings, then you are different than your siblings as well. And therefore, if everything goes wrong, the chance of one of you guys surviving is greater if there's sexual reproduction than asexual reproduction. Okay. 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 All organisms evolve. So evolution is genetic change over time in the population. Okay. Okay. So here is a population of bacteria. Okay. Occasionally there will be mutations that crop up in a population, and that's a little red dot here. That little red dot is indicative of it being able to survive a particular type of antibiotic. Okay, like for example, penicillin. Okay, but that doesn't mean it's better, right? So that just means it's there, unless there was actually penicillin. Okay, so if there's nothing going on, if there's no antibiotic, then it would just stick around. and it'll be the same. But if there was antibiotic, if there was penicillin will kill off most, if not all, of the green dots. Okay, but the red one will still be alive. So the red one can now grow. It can grow much faster than the green dots that are still alive because it's better at growing now. It's more resistant to the antibiotic, so it's going to take over the population. Okay, if, for example, the antibiotic disappears, then you will go back to a situation where the green is better. Okay. Okay, different organisms have different genes. So the reason why different organisms have different genes is because of mutations and because the environment, your survival depends on you fitting into your environment. Okay, if you don't fit in, if you stick out like a sore thumb, then you usually get killed very quickly. Like, for example, if you imagine the seahorse being like bright green, it's going to get eaten very quickly. But this one, because it looks so similar to the coral around it, it's really hard for predators to see. Like, we can see it really well here because of the picture and because we're staring at it. But if you're just looking around trying to hunt for food, then that blends into the environment enough that it's hard to see. Okay, so we're just talking about this. Okay, all right. Okay, so make sure you know how to do this. We'll go over this in class, actually. All right, taxonomy. Okay, biology is complicated. There are millions and millions of living things. Okay, and for us as scientists, as biologists, it is really hard to keep everything separate. So we don't do that. We use something called taxonomy. We put things into boxes, and into those boxes go smaller boxes, and into those boxes go smaller boxes. So like we organize things in categories. Okay, so organisms are grouped by their features, including structure, chemistry, and the sequence of their DNA. And so taxonomy, what it does is actually reveals evolutionary relationship between organisms and like how we share a common ancestor. So we'll make sure you understand how this works. But when you look at a chart like this, humans and kangaroos shared a more recent common ancestor than humans and a platypus, or kangaroos and a platypus. Okay. Okay, there are 8 levels of taxonomic hierarchy. Okay, all living organisms are organized into these 8 levels. For example, okay, we are members of the main eukarya. Okay, we have eukaryotic cells. Our cells have nuclei, etc., etc. There are a whole bunch of definitions of what eukaryotes are, and so we are members of the main eukarya. Out of the members of eukarya, we are not plants, we're not fungus, so we are members of animalia. Okay, we are animals. Out of all the animals, we are chordates. Okay, which means for the most part, we have a backbone, we have something called a notochord, etc. Okay, out of all the chordates, we are mammals. We have hair, and the females in the group produce milk. Okay, out of all the mammals, we are primates. We have opposable thumbs, and we have, instead of having nails, or sorry, instead of having claws, we have nails. Okay, Out of all the primates, we are a big family called Homonymidae. Homonymidae basically consists of us and chimps and gorillas and orangutans. Okay, out of all that, we are genus Homo. Okay, so we are a member of Homo. Homo is a group of humans, but also like Neanderthals and Homo forensis and other different members of Homo, which we'll talk about later. And then out of all those, we are sapiens. So our full species name is Homo sapiens. Okay. All right. So I talked about domains earlier. Domains are split into kingdoms. So we are members of domain Eukarya. Okay. Out of the members of domain Eukarya, we are animals. Okay. So domain bacteria and domain archaea, these are something called prokaryotes. Pro means before, karyo means nucleus. So prokaryotic means without a nucleus. So their cells do not have a nucleus. Unicellular, well, because they don't have a nucleus, their cells are pretty small and simple, and so they're unicellular. Prokaryotic means their cells without nuclei and other compartments. Okay, protista, we'll talk about later. And then out of the Eukarya, we are animals. Okay, the reason why we're animals is because we are multicellular organisms and we are heterotrophs. We have to eat things. Okay, fungi are also multicellular heterotrophs, but they do so by external digestion. Fungus secrete chemicals into their environment and they absorb nutrients through that. They don't actually have like mouths and stuff and stomachs to eat. They eat externally, we eat internally. Okay. And then plants. Okay. Kingdom Plantae. Okay. Kingdom Plantae are multicellular autotrophs. Okay, which means they get energy directly from sunlight. Okay, they're multicellular organisms, and auto means self, troph means eating, so autotroph, they make their own food. Okay, so they get it from sunlight. Okay. Okay, I will stop this right here, and then I will pick this up in the next recording that talks about the scientific method and how that works. Okay. Okay. All right.